All right, today we're going to do a deep dive into something really fascinating, the psychology of a high IQ mind. And I'm not just talking about test scores here. We're going to get into the actual cognitive architecture, what makes this kind of mind so different. So let me ask you something right off the bat. Have you ever felt like you're tuned to a frequency that nobody else seems to hear? Like you're in a room and your brain is just miles ahead of the conversation, while everyone else seems perfectly content with the pace. If that sounds familiar, you are in the right place. You see, for a lot of people with these high cognitive abilities, the world isn't just there. It's not static at all. It's this shimmering, incredible web of patterns and data and unspoken subtext. And because of that, you've probably spent your life feeling just a little bit out of sync, right? As if you're perceiving a reality that others completely miss. And here's what's so important to get. This isn't just about being smarter in some simple way. And it is definitely not a flaw or some weird quirk. We're talking about a fundamental architectural difference in how your brain is wired. Your nervous system literally filters the world differently. So, how does that actually play out? Well, think about it like this. The average brain, for the sake of convenience, filters out a ton of detail. It has to, just to get through the day. But your brain, it does the exact opposite. It's built to prioritize depth, nuance, and this constant, relentless search for patterns. Okay, so let's get into the specifics. What are the actual patterns of a high IQ mind? We're going to look at 5 common, let's call them struggles, and we're going to reframe them. Because they're not really struggles, they're signatures of a really powerful cognitive engine. First on the list is something we can call the pattern sensitivity trap. This is where your brain is basically a pattern recognition machine on steroids. It's constantly scanning, constantly making connections, seeing the dots that no one else even knows are there. And there's a real psychological term for this, pattern sensitivity. It's this neurological process that is just always on. You know, someone else might miss a tiny shift in the mood of a room, but your brain has already analyzed weeks of micro-expressions and is already predicting what's about to happen. It can be exhausting, but it's incredibly powerful. So here's the first big reframe for you. This isn't overthinking. It's strategic depth. It's a feature, not a bug. This leads us right into our second pattern, the imposter reflex. And this is a wild paradox, right? The most capable and intelligent people in the room are so often the ones who feel like the biggest frauds. Cognitive research actually has a name for this. It's called the competence-standing mismatch. And it's a documented bias where the absolute highest performers consistently, and I mean significantly, underestimate their own abilities compared to everyone else. So, why does this happen? Well, it's because you understand the full, staggering complexity of a subject. You're hyper-aware of all the gaps in your own knowledge. So here's the reframe for this one. Your doubt isn't weakness. It's a direct byproduct of your depth. Now for our third signature, the 10-step mental simulation. You don't just have a thought and then move on. No, you run these incredibly complex mental simulations, almost like a chess grandmaster, mapping out move after move, counter-move after counter-move for every possible outcome. And this is directly tied to a part of your brain called the default mode network. This is the system that handles introspection and imagining the future. And you use it to run these amazingly layered simulations, which lets you essentially plan around failures before they even come close to happening. And that brings us to another really crucial reframe. A lot of people overthink in these repeating, anxious circles of worry. But you're overthinking in compounding layers of strategy. It's a sophisticated planning tool, not just anxiety. Okay, pattern number 4 might hit a little close to home for some of us. It's the vocalized search strategy. And yeah, that's just a fancy way of saying you talk to yourself, especially when you're trying to untangle a really complex problem. But here's the thing. Neuroscientists don't think this is odd at all. They call it private speech, and they see it as a critical tool for cognitive self-regulation. It's how you turn that crowded, noisy subway station of internal thoughts into a calm, ordered system. So let's reframe this one for good. It is not crazy. Think of it more like a high-level board meeting with the most important person on your team, your own brain. You're just verbalizing the minutes to create order. And that brings us to our 5th and final pattern, the IMAX brain. This is that feeling that the world is just too much sometimes. Too loud, too bright, too too stimulating for you to handle for very long.
And what's really fascinating is the research here. Studies have found a very strong link between high cognitive ability and something called heightened sensory processing sensitivity. It means your brain is literally taking in more sensory data every single second than the average person's.
And this gives us our final and maybe my favorite reframe. You are not fragile. You're not too sensitive. You are simply experiencing life in 8K IMAX with full surround sound, while a lot of other people are watching on a 480p screen. Of course your nervous system is working harder. So let's just lay it all out. On one side, you have the misconceptions. You're overthinking, you lack confidence, you're anxious, crazy, or just too sensitive. But on the other side, you have the cognitive reality, strategic depth, doubt that comes from that depth, layered simulations, internal board meetings, and yeah, living life in IMAX. Which brings us to the most important point of all of this. Having a mind like this, in a world that was really built for the average, can feel like this quiet, exhausting burden. But your mind doesn't need to be fixed. It just needs to be understood. Let that idea really sink in. Your struggles are not personal flaws. They are simply the patterns of a different kind of operating system, patterns that are just waiting for you to understand them and harness them. And we'll end on this thought. In a world that is constantly so noisy, it's often the quietest rooms that hold the loudest truths. So take a moment, listen. What is the truth your own mind is trying to tell you?